I raised my glass at the head of my sister Sarah's oak table in her West Hills dining room. 14 faces turned toward me, conversation dying to polite silence. Brett sat close on my right, Sienna beside him. Brett's teeth showed too much. Sienna's eyes stayed flat. I lifted my glass higher. "Before I give thanks for this meal," I said, voice carrying the authority of 22 years Marine Corps, "I want to acknowledge my son Brett and daughter-in-law Sienna." Brett's smile widened. His hand found Sienna's on the white tablecloth. "They've been so diligent these past 6 weeks, since October 10th to be exact, bringing supplements, protein shakes, checking on me daily with medical questions." Sarah beamed from the far end. Ruby sat to Sarah's left, coloring quietly, purple crayon moving over paper. "I've been drinking every drop. I kept my tone level. Every supplement Brett handed me. Every shake Sienna calculated the dosage for." Brett's smile held. His hand gripped the table edge. "While Dr. Nguyen monitored my kidney function twice weekly. While Detective Crane recorded 32 hours of you two discussing dosages, death timelines, and how quickly probate closes in Oregon." The color drained from Brett's face. Sienna's hand stopped mid-reach for her wine glass. Detective Crane stepped from the kitchen doorway, sport coat over button-down. 2 uniformed officers flanked him. Ruby set down her crayon. "Daddy, why is Grandpa saying that?" My pale blue eyes stayed on Brett's. 47 years I'd built something. He'd calculated my death as a financial timeline. Ruby's small voice would haunt me for months, but Brett was done. Lock in for the rest of the story by tapping subscribe. I enlisted at 18. The recruiter's office in downtown Portland. Stale coffee and floor polish. March 1972. I signed papers that would take me through the next 22 years. Basic training at Paris Island. 20 weeks. Wake at A500. Sleep at 2200. No questions, only orders. I learned to take orders without question, to move without wasted motion, to trust the man beside me. Desert Storm came later, left me with 3 small scars on my left forearm from shrapnel. I made captain before discharge in 1994. Margaret and I married 4 years later. High school sweethearts who stood in a small church in June 1979. She wore her mother's dress. I wore dress blues. 42 years together before breast cancer took her 3 years ago. I never remarried. The business started in our garage. Nights and weekends while I served. A single hard-inch ALVH lathe contracts for small parts. Margaret handled the books. I machined the components. By 1982, we'd saved enough for the house in Laurelhurst. Paid $89,000 for a 1924 Craftsman that's worth $1.2 million now. Mallory Manufacturing grew. Aerospace components. Titanium parts machined to tolerances measured in microns. Boeing contracts. Defense work. By 2015, 47 employees. The shop floor smelled like cutting oil and hot metal. Lathes screamed, metal pinged into bins. I knew every machine, every process, every worker by name. Sold it all in 2023. 2.1 million cash, another 2.7 in investment accounts. No hesitation. Shop felt empty without her warmth filling the spaces between machines. I wanted time with Ruby instead. Granddaughter, born when Brett was 32, Sienna, 3 months pregnant at their small wedding in 2014. Ruby's 10 now, smart kid who asks questions about everything. My days run on military time. Wake at 0600. Calisthenics on the back deck. Coffee on the wraparound porch. Birds came to the feeders. I documented them. The journal started during my PTSD recovery in the 90s. Margaret suggested birdwatching might help. Patient observation. Something living that doesn't shoot back. Focusing on details. Documenting patterns. Skills that would matter later. 47 leather-bound books. Every species. Timestamp. Weather conditions. Steller's jays, black-capped chickadees, red-breasted nuthatches. I can identify calls instantly. The habit stuck because it worked. Twice weekly, I teach welding at the community center. At-risk youth, kids who need trades instead of college debt. I show them how to run a clean bead, how metal flows when heat and pressure meet. Some listen, some don't. Brett was born in 1982. Margaret's pregnancy was difficult. Emergency C-section. 6 weeks early. Prevented more children. I deployed 4 times during his childhood. Missed baseball games, science fairs, school plays. Margaret handled it. Alone, Brett remembered. I deployed. He stayed angry. He excelled academically. UCLA finance degree in 2005. Never studied, never struggled. That early success convinced him easy money was possible. He'd call, tell me about 5-figure wins, voice high with excitement. I suggested he save most of it. He said, I didn't understand modern markets. The 2008 crash wiped him out. Lost everything in 3 weeks. I offered help. He refused, said he'd recover. Confidence never wavered. He spent the next 15 years chasing that early high through increasingly risky trades. I noticed the watches first. Expensive mechanical timepieces displayed in his home office. 17 pieces worth about $40,000 total. Omega Speedmaster, Rolex Submariner, brands I knew from catalogs but never bought. Designer clothes, restaurant meals when he claimed money was tight. Sienna worked medical billing from home. Her income covered their mortgage, barely. Brett hadn't held legitimate employment since 2019. I didn't push. Figured he was an adult. Made his choices. Never suspected the gambling debt. $700,000 owed to loan sharks by August 2024. Never knew they broke 2 fingers on his left hand as warning. Never imagined they'd given him 30 days to pay in full or face worse. My sister Sarah praised him last year. Said Brett was finally growing up, taking responsibility. Margaret died quietly. Hospice bed in our living room, where she could see the bird feeders. Brett visited once during her final week. Stayed 20 minutes, took a phone call, left. Margaret said he showed love differently. I didn't argue. 2 years after her death, I made the decision to sell. I wanted time with Ruby, chance to be present in ways I wasn't with Brett. Grandfather instead of father. Different relationship, different opportunity. Ruby learned bird species fast. I'd point out a Steller's jay, explain the black crest, the corvid family. She remembered, asked smart questions, reminded me of Margaret's patience, her genuine curiosity about the world. Brett resented my emotional distance. He said so at Margaret's funeral. Marines taught mission focus, not fatherhood. I provided through work instead of presence. Gave money, security, college tuition. Thought honest labor demonstrated values. When Brett wanted attention, I gave lectures about responsibility. Margaret told him, I was showing I cared. He believed her, not me. Her death removed that buffer. Brett and I were incompatible without her interpretation. Different languages, different values. He saw my life's work as pile of money owed to him for enduring an emotionally unavailable military father. 47 years. Building from nothing, employing people, honoring contracts. He calculated how to inherit it faster. I understand desperation. Combat teaches you about fear, about what men do when cornered. But calculation is different. Planning murder while performing devoted son theater requires cold assessment of another human being's value measured in dollars. He needed 4.8 million. I had 4.8 million. Mathematics solved his problem. The journals saved me. Not the money I'd accumulated, but the habit Margaret taught me during PTSD recovery. Patient observation. Detailed documentation. Recording patterns until truth emerged. 30 years watching birds. Noting behavior. Logging data. Building records. That habit worked twice. Once for PTSD. Once when Brett brought protein shakes. The Craftsman house stands quiet now. Margaret's gone. Brett's gone, different way. Ruby visits weekends. We watch birds together. She maintains journals. Observes without judgment. Margaret would have been devastated. She believed family loyalty meant something, that bonds mattered more than money. She mediated our differences, found common ground I couldn't see, but she was dead. And Brett had decided my death solved his problems. Brett's expensive watch collection sat in his office while he planned my death. 17 timepieces obsessively maintained while calculating inheritance timelines. The irony never touched him. Man measuring time with expensive mechanical instruments while poisoning his father's remaining years. October 2024. 6 weeks before Thanksgiving. Brett showed up Tuesday morning, 3 days after Margaret's anniversary. I was on the porch at 06:30, logging a black-capped chickadee, when his Audi pulled into my driveway. He climbed out, carrying a shopping bag. Designer jeans, untucked button-down. He ran his hand through his hair, fingers pausing at the crown where it thinned. "Dad, hey." He walked up the porch steps. Thought I'd stop by before work. I closed my journal. "You don't work Tuesdays." Consulting gig. He set the bag on the wicker table between us. "Brought you something." 3 bottles. 2 protein powder containers, chocolate and vanilla. 1 supplement bottle with a label I didn't recognize. Advanced Kidney Support Formula. No manufacturer name. No FDA disclaimer. No lot number. "Premium formulations," Brett said. "From that naturopath Sienna found. They support kidney health in elderly veterans specifically." I picked up the chocolate powder. Twisted the cap. Sharp acetone underneath the artificial chocolate. Like nail polish remover masked with candy. "Mix 2 scoops with water," Brett said. "Morning and evening. The supplements are once daily with breakfast." I eat fine. "Dad, you're 70. His voice shifted to something rehearsed. "You need to stay strong for Ruby. She loves those bird walks with you." I set the container down. "Ruby's been twice." "Exactly. More reason to keep your health up." He checked his phone. "I gotta run, but I'll call later to make sure you're taking these." "Okay?" I didn't answer. He left. The Audi reversed out, tires crunching gravel. I opened the chocolate powder again, stuck my finger in, tasted a small amount. Bitter aftertaste beneath the sweetness. slight grittiness that premium ingredients shouldn't have. Set it aside. Finished logging the chickadee. 7 minutes, 43 seconds. Weather clear, temperature 58 degrees. Thursday, Brett called at ear 900. Did you take your supplements today? Not yet. Dad, you need to stay on schedule. Morning and evening, remember? I poured coffee. I'll get to it. I'm coming over Saturday to make sure you're set up properly. He hung up before I could respond. Saturday, he brought Sienna. She wore a gray cardigan, wire-rimmed glasses, hair in a low ponytail. Vincent, how are you feeling? She walked into my kitchen like she owned it. Fine. Any changes in appetite? Sleep patterns? She pulled out a notepad. Medical billing from home. But she asked questions like a diagnostician. No. Brett opened my cupboard. Started organizing pill bottles I'd kept in there for 15 years. Lined them up by size. You need a system, Dad. He pulled out a plastic organizer from his bag. 7 days, 4 time slots each. Morning, noon, evening, bedtime. I'll set this up for you. Sienna watched my face. Have you noticed any fatigue during your morning routine? I'm 70. Everything's more tiring. Specific examples would help. She clicked her pen. Brett filled the organizer. 2 scoops of protein powder in a shaker bottle. Vitamin capsules in the morning slot. His hands moved fast. Practiced. There, he held it up. No excuses now. They stayed an hour. Brett made lunch. Grilled cheese I didn't ask for. Sienna asked about my last VA appointment, whether Dr. Nguyen had mentioned anything about kidney function. After they left, I dumped the grilled cheese in the trash. Logged it. September 17, 13:20 hours. First meal prepared by Brett. Disposed of unconsumed. Kept the organizer on the counter where Brett would see it next time. Marines taught me to know the terrain before engaging. By the 3rd week, my hands shook during morning coffee. Not much. A tremor in my right hand, ceramic mug rattling against the saucer. I set it down, tried again. Same shake. 47 years of precision machine work. Never had unsteady hands. I gripped the porch railing. Solid pressure, no movement. But when I held the coffee mug, the tremor returned. Logged it in my journal. September 24, 065 hours. Tremor in right hand, minor. Weather overcast, 54 degrees. By October, my pants needed a belt. 20 pounds. 6 weeks. I'd maintained the same weight since discharge. Now my shirts hung loose, belt cinched 2 holes tighter. Sarah visited mid-October. Brought apple pie. Vincent, you're losing weight. She set the pie on my kitchen counter. Are you eating? Brett's been bringing meals. She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. I heard he's been stopping by more. That's wonderful. He's finally stepping up. I cut 2 slices of pie. Handed her one. You should be proud, Sarah said. Not every son takes care of his aging father like this. The pie tasted like cardboard. I ate it anyway. Brett came Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday now. Regular schedule. Always with the protein shakes. Always watching me drink them. Always that syrupy voice, asking if I'd taken my supplements. Ruby came once, colored at my kitchen table while Brett prepared dinner. Purple crayon moved across paper, coloring what looked like a boat with oversized windows. Grandpa, when you're in heaven, can you see us from there? I looked up from my journal. Why are you asking that? Mommy says, when you're in heaven, we can get a boat. Purple crayon kept moving. A big one for the lake. Brett's knife stopped mid-chop. Ruby, don't bother Grandpa with that. But you said, Ruby. Sienna's voice from the living room, quiet, final. Ruby went back to coloring. I noted the exact words in my memory. October 8th, 1847 hours. Witness, Ruby Mallory, age 10. October 12th. I forgot what I was looking at. Morning birdwatching. A jay landed on the feeder. Black crest, blue wings. Corvid family. Margaret's favorite. The name sat behind glass, visible but unreachable. The jay tilted its head, looked at me. Flew away, Steller's jay. The name arrived 5 minutes later. By then, the bird was gone. I logged it anyway. October 12th, 0623 hours. Steller's jay, male. Delayed identification, 5 minutes. My VA appointment was October 17. Brett drove me, sat in the examination room taking notes on his phone while Dr. Nguyen reviewed my chart. Vincent, your kidney function has dropped 15% in 3 weeks. She held my gaze for 3 seconds. 4. Then looked at Brett. That's a significant decline. How significant? Enough that I want additional tests. She typed something. When did you last have comprehensive blood work? Brett leaned forward. He's been forgetting to hydrate, doctor. I keep reminding him, but you know how stubborn he is. Dr. Nguyen's eyes stayed on mine. Are you drinking enough water? I drink coffee. That's not the same. That concerned tone that sounded rehearsed. I've been bringing him protein shakes to help, but he needs to drink more water throughout the day. Dr. Nguyen nodded slowly, ordered the additional tests, scheduled me for follow-up in 2 weeks. In the parking lot, Brett checked his phone. New watch on his wrist. Omega Speedmaster. Reference 310.30.42.50.50.4. Retail 12,000. Based on the 2024 catalog I'd checked after seeing him wear it. When did you get that? He glanced at his wrist. Last month. Investment piece. Already appreciated 30%. I got in his car, said nothing. Walking from the porch to my kitchen left me winded by late October. 20 feet, 15 steps. I had to stop halfway, grip the doorframe. My morning calisthenics dropped to 10 minutes. Then 5. Then I sat on the back deck, breathing hard, wondering when stairs became mountains. Brett called every day now. Same question. Did you take your supplements? Yes. Morning and evening. Yes. Good. I'll be by Thursday to check your organizer. He came Thursday. Checked the organizer. All slots empty for the week. His smile widened. See? You're keeping up. How do you feel? Tired. That's normal at your age, Dad. The supplements will help. Keep taking them. Sienna came Saturday. Eczema on her wrists, red and raw. She picked at it while asking questions about my sleep. Any night sweats? Changes in urination frequency? No. Confusion? Memory issues? I thought about the Steller's jay. Some. She made notes. Her hands shook slightly. Medical professional composure. But the eczema told a different story. Brett's phone rang. Through the screen door, his voice carried clear. 2 more weeks maximum. The markers are progressing exactly like she said. Pause. I know. I'm managing it. Just need a little more time. He came back inside. Smile in place. Work call. You know how it is. I nodded. Pale blue eyes watery from fatigue, or appearing that way. He left an hour later. Sienna followed. I sat on my porch. October sun cut through thin clouds. Temperature dropping toward 50. My hands shook, holding the coffee mug. But my mind ran clear. Marines taught patience, observation, intelligence gathering before action. Brett had been visiting 3 times weekly for 6 weeks. Unprecedented attention after years of monthly obligatory calls. Supplements with chemical smell, weight loss, tremors, confusion, kidney function dropping 15% in 3 weeks. Ruby talking about heaven and boats. Brett checking probate timelines. 2 more weeks maximum. The markers progressing exactly like she said. I opened my journal, noted the time. The exact words Brett had said on the phone. The watch model visible through his cuff. I didn't know what yet, but I knew something. And Marines don't engage until they understand the terrain. October 15, my 70th birthday. Brett's Audi pulled into my driveway at 17:12 hours. Sienna sat in the passenger seat. Ruby climbed out from the back, purple backpack slung over one shoulder. I set down my journal, left the chickadee entry unfinished. They climbed out, carrying grocery bags. Brett wore an untucked designer shirt, hair styled to hide the thinning crown. Sienna had her hair in that same low ponytail, wire-rimmed glasses catching late afternoon light. "Dad, hey!" Brett walked up the steps. "We came early to help with dinner." I stood. "Dinner's not until 6. Sure, gives us time to prepare." He moved past me into the house. Sienna followed, carrying a smaller bag. Ruby trailed behind them, looking at the bird feeders. They went straight to my kitchen. I heard cabinet doors opening, Brett's voice discussing where things should go. I stayed on the porch another minute, logged a Stellar's J, mail, 3 minutes 40 seconds. Then closed my journal. Inside, Brett had spread ingredients across my counter. Chicken, vegetables, potatoes. Sienna organized spices from my cupboard. Ruby sat at the far end of my table, pulling out crayons and paper. "We're making your favorite, Dad. Rosemary chicken, roasted potatoes." Brett pulled a cutting board from the drawer like he knew where everything lived. "I didn't ask you to cook. It's your birthday." He smiled. "Let us do this." I sat at the kitchen table, watched them move through my space. Brett chopped vegetables. Sienna seasoned the chicken. They worked without talking, practiced choreography. "Need to use the bathroom," I said. Brett glanced up. "Sure, Dad. We've got this." I climbed the stairs. My house, built in 1924, had thin floors. Heating vents carried sound between levels. Old construction, poor insulation. Standing on the upstairs landing, I could hear kitchen conversations clearly. I paused at the top step. Brett's voice drifted up through the vent near my feet. "Dad won't last long." Casual tone, discussing weather. Sienna's timeline says 3 weeks maximum before kidney function hits critical. Then it's just waiting for the final cascade. My hand found the banister. Oak under my palm, solid and cool. Sienna's voice, clinical and measured. His creatinine is 2.8, up from 1.1 baseline 6 weeks ago. The ethylene glycol derivatives combined with his beta blockers are working as projected. Every word burned into memory. Military mind cataloging data. Time, 17:29 hours. Location, upstairs landing. Witnesses, none. "But we need to increase dosage 15 milliliters, Sienna continued. "His next VA appointment is Thursday. And if Nguyen orders comprehensive toxicology instead of standard panel, we're exposed." Brett laughed. The sound carried up through the vent. She won't. He's 70 with combat exposure. Organ failure is expected. 3 more weeks, and we're looking at 4.8 million, minus what I owe Dimitri. My knuckles went white on the banister. Breathing shallow, controlled, no sound that would give me away. Ruby's small voice. Mommy, when does Grandpa die so we can get the boat? Sienna answered. Soon, sweetie. Grandpa's very old and sick. These things happen. I turned toward the hallway mirror. Pale blue eyes stared back. Not watery anymore. Calculating. The Marine looking out from behind 70 years of accumulated time. Footsteps below. Brett moving around the kitchen. Ruby, go wash your hands. Dinner prep is adult time. I walked to the bathroom. Ran water. Counted to 60. Flushed. Returned downstairs at 17:34 hours. Brett stood at my counter, blender running. Chocolate protein powder, ice, milk. He poured it into a tall glass. Birthday shake, Dad. Double chocolate, your favorite. I took the glass. Sharp acetone underneath the artificial chocolate, like nail polish remover masked with candy. Our eyes met. His smile reached his teeth, but stopped there. I drank. Entire contents, 16 ounces. The same grittiness I'd noticed before, bitter aftertaste beneath artificial sweetness. Brett's smile widened. There you go. Gotta keep your strength up. I set the empty glass on the counter. New watch. He glanced at his wrist. Omega Speedmaster, reference 310.30.42.50.1.01. Picked it up last month. Investment piece. How much? 12,000. But it's already appreciated 30%. I nodded. You collect 17 now? 18. Got a Rolex Submariner last week. He returned to chopping vegetables. Sienna arranged mushrooms on a cutting board. White buttons. Cremini, something darker. Those from your basement? I asked. She looked up. Yes. Lion's mane. They're medicinal, good for cognitive function. You grow them yourself. Climate-controlled conditions. Humidity, temperature, all monitored. She sliced one thin. It's precise science. Privacy work. Her knife stopped mid-slice. 3 seconds. 4. The blade moved again. Similar principles. Problem ruby colored at the far end of my table. Purple crayon on white paper. A boat with oversized windows, waves underneath. Dinner proceeded. Sarah arrived at 1800 hours with 2 other relatives. We sat around my dining room table. Rosemary chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans. Brett carved the meat. Sienna served plates. They left at 247 hours. Brett hugged me at the door. Happy birthday, Dad. We'll check on you Thursday. I stood on my porch. Watched taillights disappear down the street. Back inside, I found the protein powder container on my counter. Brett had left it. Thoughtful son making sure I had supplies. I opened my bedroom safe, pulled out a plastic evidence bag from the box of supplies I kept, poured the remaining powder into the bag, sealed it, labeled it with permanent marker. October 15th, 247 hours. Chocolate protein powder. Provided by Brett Mallory. Partial consumption by Vincent Mallory at 17:34 hours. Remaining contents secured as evidence. Placed it in the safe. Closed the door. Spun the lock. Sat on my bed. My hands didn't shake. The tremor was gone. Brett had 4 weeks on his timeline. Sienna worried about Thursday's appointment. Dimitri needed payment. Ruby wanted a boat. I had every word they'd said. Exact quotes. Timestamps. Evidence. Marines don't engage until they understand the terrain. Now I understood. At durate-oded hours, I'd call Dr. Nguyen. I didn't sleep that night. At 0600, I reached for my phone. Dr. Nguyen's private cell. She'd given it to me 8 years ago after Margaret's diagnosis. For emergencies only. I dialed. 3 rings. Vincent? Her voice carried that alert tone medical professionals develop. Awake instantly. Someone is poisoning me. I need comprehensive testing. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. Can you come to my office at 9? Yes. Don't eat or drink anything between now and then. She paused. Vincent, are you certain? My kidney function dropped 30% in 6 weeks. That doesn't happen naturally with my history. No, it doesn't. I'll see you at 9. I hung up, set the phone down, looked at my hands in the pale morning light. Steady. The tremor only came when Brett was watching. Her office smelled like antiseptic and floor polish. Same smell as every military medical facility I'd been in. She closed the door behind me, gestured to the examination table. Tell me everything. I spoke for 12 minutes. Exact dates. Timestamps. The protein powder's chemical smell. Ruby's question about heaven and boats. Brett's phone conversation about 3 weeks maximum. Sienna's clinical discussion of creatinine levels. Dr. Nguyen didn't interrupt. 22 years treating veterans meant she knew when to listen. Her hands stayed still on her desk, but her jaw tightened when I mentioned Brett calculating my death as a financial timeline. I need the full toxicology panel, I said. Not the standard screening, the comprehensive analysis. That's expensive. Insurance won't cover it without cause. I'm aware. I'm also aware that antifreeze derivatives mimic kidney failure in men my age. Run the tests. Document everything. I'll be back Thursday at 900 for blood draw number 2. She pulled out a requisition form. Started writing. You're describing sustained low-dose poisoning. That requires premeditation. Yes. By your son and his wife. She has pharmacy knowledge. She's selecting the compounds. Dr. Nguyen set down her pen, looked at me for 5 seconds. I've been your doctor for 15 years, Vincent. You're the most methodical patient I have. If you say someone is poisoning you, I believe you. She drew 3 vials of blood, labeled them herself. I'm sending these to Michael Torres, private forensic lab. He does work for criminal cases. Results in 48 hours. Thank you, Vincent. She capped the last vial. How long are you planning to keep drinking their poison? Until we have enough evidence that no jury can ignore. Her hands shook slightly, placing the vials in the transport case. That's dangerous. Marines don't die on other people's timelines. She called me October 18 at 14:30 hours. I was on my porch logging a black-capped chickadee when my phone buzzed. Vincent, the results came back. Her voice carried an edge I'd never heard. You have sustained low-dose ethylene glycol poisoning combined with crushed diuretics. It's creating accelerated kidney damage that mimics natural organ failure. I set down my journal. How long do I have? Maybe 2 weeks before permanent damage. We need law enforcement immediately. I know someone. Detective Morris Crane. We'd met at a Marine Corps League meeting in 2021. Gulf War veteran gave me his card. I called October 19 at 0800, Crane, Morris. It's Vincent Mallory. We met at the League meeting 3 years ago. I remember. What do you need? My son is poisoning me for inheritance money. I have toxicology reports proving it. Can you meet today? Silence. Then, where are you? We met at his office at 1000 hours. He stood when I entered, right forearm showing the eagle globe and anchor tattoo. His handshake was firm, controlled strength. Show me what you have. I laid out the evidence bags, the chocolate protein powder, the toxicology reports, my journal with exact timestamps and quotes. He read through everything twice. Brother, we build this case perfect. He tapped the toxicology report. You keep drinking his poison under medical monitoring while we gather evidence. This son of a bitch tried to murder a decorated Marine. We're going to bury him. I need surveillance equipment. I know a guy. Can you install it yourself? Yes. He made a phone call. Gave me an address. Tell him I sent you. He'll set you up with everything you need. The equipment came October 20. Smoke detector cameras, wireless microphones disguised as electrical outlets, encrypted cloud storage preventing local access. I installed them myself. Kitchen, living room, hallway, cameras covering every angle. My body ached from the ladder work. 20 pounds lighter, kidney function at 60%. But the equipment was in place. Breck came Tuesday. I watched from my bedroom as he prepared my protein shake downstairs. The kitchen microphone picked up everything. He's looking weaker, Brett said, phone on speaker, while he measured powder. How much longer? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. 2 weeks if we maintain current dosage. 3 if his body compensates. Increase by 15 milliliters to accelerate. Brett poured the shake into a glass. Got it. 15 more. I came downstairs at 0847 hours. He handed me the glass. Morning, Dad. Made you a fresh one. I drank it. Bitter aftertaste beneath artificial chocolate. He smiled while measuring the powder. Over 5 weeks, the system recorded 32 hours of conversations. Brett and Sienna discussing dosage increases, timeline acceleration, estate distribution. Sienna's voice, October 25, clinical and precise. Add 15 milliliters to tomorrow's shake. His GFAR is dropping too slowly. I saved everything to encrypted cloud storage. Burned copies to 3 separate drives. Gave one to Detective Crane. October 25. Brett texted that he'd be late for his usual visit. Taking Ruby to school, running errands. Perfect timing. I pulled up the address from his Christmas card. Lake Oswego. 3-story McMansion they'd bought in 2018, over-leveraged at $890,000. His Audi was gone from the driveway. The back door lock was standard residential grade. Took me 40 seconds with a tension wrench and pick. His office was on the 2nd floor. 17 mechanical watches in a custom display case. Omega Speedmaster, Rolex Submariner, Patek Philippe complications. 40,000 in timepieces while claiming poverty. His desk drawer held loan shark documentation, payment schedules, escalating threats, photos of his broken fingers. $700,000 total debt. 30-day deadline, or face worse than broken bones. The forged power of attorney sat in a manila folder. My signature, but wrong. The middle initial placement was off, Stroke pattern too smooth. Practice sheets underneath showing attempts at copying my handwriting. His laptop sat open. Browser history loaded in 2 clicks. Undetectable poisons. Oregon inheritance timeline. Expedited probate. 37 searches dating back to August. I photographed everything. Every document. Every screen. Every angle. Left no trace of entry. Locked the back door on my way out. October 27. I met with Amanda Chen, former JAG Corps attorney, now in private practice handling estate law. She'd done Margaret's will. Vincent. She stood when I entered her office. Good to see you. I need a new trust structure. Immediately. Her expression shifted. What's happened? My son is poisoning me for inheritance. I need Ruby protected as sole beneficiary. Brett gets nothing. She didn't question it. 20 years as military attorney meant she recognized certainty. Sit. Tell me specifics. I gave her the timeline, the evidence, the investigation. She took notes on a legal pad, handwriting precise and economical. Will execute an irrevocable trust naming Ruby as beneficiary upon age 25. You maintain control during your lifetime. She looked up. We'll need videotaped signing ceremony. Psychiatric evaluation proving testamentary capacity. Multiple witnesses. When? I'll arrange everything today. We'll execute tomorrow. The signing took place October 27 at 1400 hours. 2 witnesses, court reporter, psychiatric evaluator. Amanda videotaped the entire ceremony. I stated my name, my intent, my reasoning. The psychiatrist asked cognitive questions. I answered each one. The new trust disinherited Brett completely. 30% to veteran charities. 70% to Ruby at age 25. Any contest attempt triggered $50,000 donation to veteran legal defense in honor of the son who tried to poison a Marine. Amanda notarized the final page. This is bulletproof, Vincent. He can't break it. I drove home. The hidden cameras recorded Brett arriving at 16:30 hours with Sienna. They discussed my declining appearance. Sienna checked her notes, confirmed timeline was on schedule. I sat on my porch at 1800 hours. Logged a Stellar's J, male, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Margaret's favorite bird, 6 weeks of drinking poison. 32 hours of recorded conspiracy. Toxicology reports. Forged documents. Browser history. A new trust protecting Ruby. Detective Crane called at 1845. Evidence package is complete, he said. We move on Thanksgiving. Maximum family witnesses. Understood. 4 weeks until Thanksgiving. Brett's timeline said 3 weeks maximum before critical kidney failure. But Dr. Nguyen monitored my levels twice weekly. We'd stop before permanent damage. I just needed to keep drinking his poison a little longer. Marines don't engage until they understand the terrain. Now I understood everything. I sat at the head of Sarah's oak table in her West Hills dining room. 14 faces turned toward me around the antique wood. Family china, crystal chandelier, roasted turkey scent mixing with pumpkin pie. November 28th, 1847 hours. Brett sat close on my right, designer shirt untucked. Sienna beside him, gray cardigan and wire-rimmed glasses. Ruby colored at the far end, purple crayon moving across paper. Sarah beamed from her position opposite me. Normal Thanksgiving conversation during dinner. I asked Brett about his watch collection. That Speedmaster still appreciating? He glanced at his wrist. 32% in 2 months. Alternative asset allocation, Dad. I nodded, turned to Sienna. Those mushrooms from your basement? Lion's mane and shiitake. Climate-controlled conditions. She pushed them around her plate. The eczema on her wrists looked worse. Ruby showed me her drawing. A boat with oversized windows. That's for when we move to the lake, she said. Brett's hand found hers. Ruby, finish your dinner. Detective Crane stood in the kitchen doorway. Sport coat, no tie. 2 uniformed officers flanked him. They'd arrived 90 minutes ago, positioned before the meal. Front and back exits blocked by plainclothes officers. I lifted my water glass. The conversation died. 14 faces turned toward me. Before we give thanks for this meal, I said, my voice carrying Marine Corps authority 22 years had built. I want to acknowledge my son Brett and daughter-in-law Sienna. Brett's smile reached his teeth, but stopped at his eyes. His hand found Sienna's on the white tablecloth. They've been so diligent these past 6 weeks. Since October 10th, to be exact, bringing supplements, protein shakes, checking on me daily with such concern. Sarah's face lit up from the far end. She'd been waiting for this. Validation that Brett had finally stepped up. I've been drinking every drop. My tone stayed level. Every supplement Brett handed me with that worried look. Every shake Sienna calculated the dosage for. Brett's practiced smile froze mid-expression. His fingers gripped the table edge. While Dr. Nguyen monitored my kidney function twice weekly. While Detective Crane recorded 32 hours of you two discussing dosages, death timelines, and how quickly probate closes in Oregon. Brett's face went white. Sienna's hand stopped mid-reach for her wine glass. Sarah's mouth opened. No sound came out. Ethylene glycol derivatives combined with my beta blockers. I set my glass down. That's antifreeze, for those unfamiliar. 7 toxicology reports spanning 42 days. Your laptop, Brett, with all those searches. Undetectable poisons. Oregon inheritance timelines. Expedited probate. Detective Crane moved forward from the kitchen doorway. 2 officers moved with him. Ruby's purple crayon stopped mid-stroke. Daddy, why is Grandpa saying that? The question hit harder than I'd prepared for. But the operation was in motion. Brett lurched from his chair. His shoulder hit the table edge. Wine glasses rattled. Brett Mallory, Sienna Mallory. Crane's voice carried across the room. You're under arrest for attempted aggravated murder. The officers moved fast. One grabbed Brett's arm, twisted it behind his back. Brett struggled. His expensive shirt wrinkled as the handcuffs clicked. Sienna sat frozen, her clinical detachment shattered like glass. The second officer cuffed her hands in front of her body. She stared at the metal around her wrists. Ruby's face crumpled. Tears tracked down her cheeks. What's happening, Mommy? What's happening? Crane's voice cut through Ruby's sobs as he read the Miranda rights. The words were precise, clear for the family witness benefit. I met Brett's eyes across the table. My pale blue eyes met Brett's hazel ones. You calculated wrong, son. Marines don't die on a financial timeline. We adapt and overcome. I pushed back from the table. You're done. The officers escorted them through the living room. Brett twisted against the grip on his arms. Sienna walked like someone sleepwalking. Ruby's crying followed them. Sarah spoke for the first time since the arrest. Vincent, I don't understand. He was poisoning me for inheritance money. 7 weeks of supplements laced with antifreeze derivatives. Sienna designed the compounds to mimic natural kidney failure in elderly veterans. She put her hand over her mouth. But I told you. I said he was finally stepping up. He was stepping up to murder. I sat back down. Dr. Nguyen has the medical evidence. Detective Crane has 32 hours of recordings. They discussed dosages in my kitchen, while the hidden cameras recorded everything. Her words fractured mid-sentence. I defended him. I told you to be proud. You didn't know. Ruby. Her voice broke. That poor child. Through the window, I watched the police cruiser pull away. Red and blue lights cut through the November darkness. My hands stayed steady on the table. The tremor was gone. Ever since I'd taken control of the situation, the shaking had become a tool, something I could turn on when Brett was watching. Performance. Like his devoted son routine. Like Sienna's clinical questions about my health. I performed weakness while they performed care. 7 weeks of theater on both sides. But Marines are trained in deception operations. Brett learned finance at UCLA. Different skill sets. Sarah cleared the plates with mechanical movements. The food sat untouched. Ruby's coloring paper remained on the table. The boat with oversized windows. When Grandpa dies, we can get the boat. I folded the paper. Put it in my jacket pocket. My phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Nguyen. Kidney function stable at 62% GFR. Dialysis not required. You're clear, I typed back. Thank you. The dining room emptied. Extended family left in shocked silence. Hugs at the door, whispered questions I didn't answer. Sarah apologizing again. I should have seen it. I should have known. No one sees what they're not looking for. I put on my jacket. I'll check on Ruby tomorrow. She nodded. Tears tracked down her face. I drove home through empty streets. Portland at night, past the Christmas lights already up on Burnside, the November cold seeping through the car vents. The Craftsman house stood dark when I pulled into the driveway. Inside, I checked the safe. Evidence bags still sealed. Toxicology reports. Recorded conversations. The forged power of attorney with Brett's practice sheets. Detective Crane would need all of it for trial. But tonight, it stayed locked away. The back deck was dark when I sat down. November air cut through my jacket. Someone's dog barked 3 houses down. The bird feeders hung empty in the darkness. No Stellar's jays at this hour. Margaret would have been devastated. She believed family loyalty meant something, but she was gone. And Brett had decided my death solved his problems. $700,000 in gambling debts. Loan sharks breaking fingers. $4.8 million in inheritance. The mathematics were simple. What he hadn't calculated was that Marines document everything. That patience defeats panic. That a 70-year-old man might still have the discipline to drink poison for 7 weeks while building a perfect case. Ruby's question echoed. Daddy, why is Grandpa saying that? She'd learned the truth when she was old enough to understand that her parents had valued a boat more than her grandfather's life. I locked the back door. Set the alarm. Checked the window locks from habit. My phone lit up with Crane's name. Both in custody. Arraignment Monday. You did good, brother. I didn't respond. Set the phone on the kitchen counter. The house settled around me. 42 years in these walls. Margaret and I raised Brett here. Watched him graduate high school from that front porch. Celebrated his wedding in this backyard. Now officers had led him away in handcuffs, while 12 family members watched. I poured water into a clean glass. The tap ran cold, metallic tasting. My kidney function at 62%. Permanent damage avoided. 2 weeks to spare. Brett's original timeline had given him 3 weeks. He'd been close to his deadline. But Marines don't die on other people's schedules. The prosecutor's briefing room smelled like burnt coffee and floor polish. 24 hours after the arrest, I sat across from Deputy District Attorney Karen Walsh. She laid out 16 pages of charging documents. Attempted aggravated murder, Walsh said. 25-year minimum. Conspiracy to commit murder. Elder abuse resulting in bodily harm. Bail recommendation $2 million each. I turned the pages. Legal language transforming 7 weeks of protein shakes into counts 1 through 8. Can they post bail? No. Walsh tapped her pen against the table. Brett's accessible checking accounts show $1,200. Sienna has $4,000. Their home equity is negative after second mortgage. The loan sharks own everything else. Detective Crane stood by the window. Arraignments at 1400. Judge Paulson presiding. He's former Marine, Vietnam era. This should go smooth. I folded the charging documents, set them in my lap. Walsh leaned forward. Vincent, we need to discuss something else. Ruby's placement. I'm her grandfather. You're also the victim in an attempted murder case. Child Protective Services has concerns about placing her with you during trial. Where do they want to put her? Foster care. Temporarily. I met Walsh's eyes. Ruby knows me. We watch birds together. Log species in journals. Her parents are in jail for poisoning me. Foster care won't explain that better than I can. Crane turned from the window. Brother, we can fight this. Walsh made notes on her legal pad. I'll coordinate with family court. Emergency custody hearing can happen fast if we push. 3 days later, I sat in Judge Elizabeth Hardwick's courtroom. December 2nd, 1400 hours. Ruby's guardian ad litem presented interview findings to the court. The child reported statements including, when Grandpa dies, we can get the boat, and discussions of how long probate takes in Oregon, the guardian said. Judge Hardwick read the report. 61 years old, gray hair in a practical cut, former prosecutor's face that had seen everything twice. Mr. Mallory, you're requesting permanent guardianship? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. The child's parents are both incarcerated awaiting trial on charges of attempting to murder you. Yes, and you believe you can provide appropriate care despite being the target of their crime. I raised one son poorly, I said. I'd like the chance to raise his daughter correctly. Hardwick's mouth twitched. Might have been a smile. These parents created an environment of normalized homicidal planning, incompatible with child welfare. Temporary custody granted to Vincent Mallory effective immediately. Permanent guardianship contingent on criminal trial outcomes. The gavel hit. Ruby became mine. Detective Crane's forensic team spent 2 weeks processing Brett's devices. December 15th, he briefed me at his office. 3 computers, 2 phones, 1 tablet. Crane tapped the printout. Deleted files from August through October. Recovery took about 40 minutes. He didn't even use secure deletion software. I picked up the first page. Browser history from August through October. Undetectable poisons for humans. How to defeat toxicology testing. Oregon probate timeline calculator. 37 related searches, Crane said, dating back 6 months before the first protein shake. The next printout showed Darknet forum activity. Brett's username discussing antifreeze derivatives with someone called Chemist9. 6 conversations about metabolic pathways and detection windows. Sienna's devices? I asked. Pharmacy database access logs. She researched drug interactions, ethylene glycol metabolism, beta blocker combinations. Crane pulled another file. Her basement had textbooks, 3 of them with highlighted sections on poison detection and organ failure markers. I set down the printouts. What about the dosage calculations? Handwritten notes in her mushroom cultivation logbook. Weight, kidney function estimates, milligram calculations. Michael Torres compared them to the recordings. Perfect match. 5 months of pre-trial motions and discovery followed the arraignment. The trial started April 14, 2025. Multnomah County Courthouse, Department 12. I wore pressed khakis and blue chambray shirt. Silver crew cut, still military precise. Pale blue eyes that tracked every detail. Brett sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit hanging loose. He'd lost weight. The expensive watch tan lines still visible on his wrist where the omega used to be. Hair no longer styled to hide the bald spot. Expensive watch collection seized during discovery. Sienna sat beside him, wire-rimmed glasses catching courtroom light. The clinical detachment was gone. Her hands shook when she reached for water. Walsh presented the toxicology reports first. 6 blood samples, October 16 through November 27. Each one showing escalating ethylene glycol derivatives. Mr. Mallory's creatinine level on October 16 was 2.8, Walsh said. Normal baseline is 1.1. By November 20, it had reached 3.6. Kidney function at 40%. Dr. Nguyen took the stand afternoon of day 2. She wore professional attire, jade bracelet her mother gave her visible when she raised her hand to swear in. How long have you treated Vincent Mallory? Walsh asked. 15 years. And his kidney function before October 2024. Perfect for his age. No disease markers, no decline patterns. GFR consistently above 80%. Walsh pulled up a chart. Can you explain this drop? Normal decline is 1% per year after age 40. Vincent lost 38% in 6 weeks. That's 40 years of aging compressed into 42 days. External poisoning is the only explanation. Brett's attorney stood for cross-examination. Public defender named Morrison, 20 years experience, facing an unwinnable case. Morrison flipped through the chart. Dr. Nguyen, you've treated elderly patients for 20 years. Kidney decline happens, correct? At 1% annually, yes. So, a 70-year-old experiencing kidney problems isn't unusual. Gradual decline isn't unusual. Catastrophic drop in 6 weeks is impossible without poisoning or acute injury. Mr. Mallory had neither. Morrison sat down. Michael Torres testified day 4. Forensic toxicologist. Credentials spanning 3 pages. The blood samples showed sustained low-dose exposure to ethylene glycol derivatives, Torres said, combined with crushed diuretics, creating accelerated damage. The pattern indicates deliberate administration over extended period. Walsh entered Sienna's handwritten notes into evidence. Can you compare these calculations to the toxicology findings? Torres reviewed both documents. The milligram amounts in these notes correspond exactly to the metabolite concentrations in Mr. Mallory's blood at matching dates. Whoever wrote these notes was tracking the poisoning with pharmaceutical precision. Morrison tried attacking the journals during my testimony day 6. Mr. Mallory, you claim your son was poisoning you based on conversations you overheard. Not claimed. Recorded. 32 hours. But you also claim perfect memory of exact quotes from October? I documented everything in my journals. Same journals I've maintained for 30 years. Walsh entered all 47 volumes into evidence. Morrison spent 20 minutes flipping through them. Bird species, timestamps, weather conditions. 30 years of meticulous observation. Your Honor, I'd like to call Dr. Raymond Cho, Morrison said, geriatric psychiatrist. He'll testify about age-related cognitive decline and paranoid ideation in elderly patients. Judge Ramirez allowed it. Dr. Cho spent 40 minutes explaining dementia patterns. Morrison asked his final question with obvious relief. Doctor, could paranoid beliefs develop in elderly patients experiencing organ failure? It's possible, yes. Walsh stood for cross. Dr. Cho, have you reviewed Mr. Mallory's birdwatching journals? No. Walsh held up Journal 47. Is this entry from 2 weeks before arrest? Paranoid? Black-capped chickadee. 0617 hours, 6 minutes, 32 seconds observation. Dr. Cho examined the page. No, that's detailed observational recording. 47 journals spanning 30 years. Still think he's delusional? The jury deliberated 3 hours. Long enough to review 6 toxicology reports, 32 hours of recordings, and 47 journals. Short enough to show they'd reached consensus fast. They returned at 16:47 hours, April 23. On count 1, attempted aggravated murder, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. 8 counts. 8 guilty verdicts. Brett's face stayed blank. Sienna cried silently. Sentencing came July 18. Judge Ramirez reviewed the pre-sentence reports. Brett's gambling history. Sienna's pharmacy credential revocation. The loan shark documentation. Ruby's guardian ad litem testimony. Ramirez reviewed the evidence log. Omega Speedmaster purchased September 18. First poison dosage, September 20. Rolex Submariner purchased October 12. Dosage increased October 14. You measured your father's death in luxury timepieces. Brett got 25 years. Sienna got 25 years. Earliest parole eligibility at age 67 and 64. The Lake Oswego house went to foreclosure August 12. The 17 watch collection sold at auction for $40,200. Victim Restitution Fund. Sarah, who'd praised Brett's caregiving at Thanksgiving, now testified about patterns she'd ignored for years. How Brett had resented Vincent's emotional distance. How he'd viewed his father's work as money owed for an unhappy childhood. She called me after the sentencing, crying so hard I could barely understand her. I defended him, Vince. I told you to be proud. You didn't know. I should have. I'm his aunt. I watched him grow up. She hung up after 3 minutes. Nothing I could say would fix what she was feeling. Dimitri never called about the $700,000. The loan sharks had written off the debt the moment Brett was arrested. Dead men don't pay, but neither do lifers in state prison. The newspapers covered it for 3 weeks. Local veteran Poison's own father. I didn't read them. The trial transcripts were enough. Ruby asked about her parents once. September 2025, after her first day of 4th grade. Will I see them again? Not until you're an adult. If you want to. She nodded, went back to her homework. The judge signed the final order, October 1st, 2025, formally granting me guardianship. No visitation rights. No appeals. Brett and Sienna's names removed from her birth certificate as if they'd never existed. The paperwork sat in my safe next to the evidence bags I'd never need again. Dr. Nguyen called January 14 at 0830 hours. I was on the porch, logging a black-capped chickadee when the phone buzzed. Vincent, your latest labs came back. Kidney function at 65%. I set down my journal. Dialysis, not needed. You're stable, her voice softened. You earned it, Vincent. Ruby sat beside me, binoculars around her neck. She looked up from her coloring book. We'll continue twice-weekly monitoring through March, Dr. Nguyen said. But you dodged permanent damage. I hung up. Ruby went back to coloring a Stellar's J, blue crayon moving carefully inside the lines. A courier delivered the estate paperwork February 3rd. Heavy stock paper, Amanda Chen's letterhead embossed. Precise legal language, transforming intentions into binding structure. Ruby's sole beneficiary at age 25. 4.8 million held in irrevocable trust. 30% designated for veteran causes. Charitable foundation honoring Margaret's memory. I signed where Amanda had marked with yellow tabs. Notary witnessed. Filed with the county clerk by 1600 hours. Ruby's 4th grade teacher called February 12. Mr. Mallory. Ruby raised her hand in class discussion today. First time all year. Thought you'd want to know. I set down my journal. Thank you, she continued. Her anxiety levels have dropped significantly. She's participating now, engaging with the material. I hung up. Ruby was at the kitchen table doing multiplication homework, pencil moving steadily across the page. I resumed teaching welding twice weekly in March. Drew gambling debt mathematics on the whiteboard. Showed compound interest, loan shark rates, inheritance entitlement thinking. Never mentioned Brett's name. The kids listened anyway. Ruby asked about her parents once. March 18, after dinner. I told her the truth without embellishment. Not until she was an adult. If she wanted to. She nodded and returned to her homework. No follow-up questions. Sometimes honesty is enough. March 25. Morning birdwatching at 0615 hours. A pair of Stellar's Jays landed in the oak tree. Same location, Margaret and I had watched them nest in 1995. Ruby lowered her binoculars. Corvids. They're smart and territorial. That's right, she made notes in her journal. Species, timestamp, weather conditions. Her handwriting looked like Margaret's had at that age. Careful block letters, numbers precise. Grandpa, stubbornness isn't weakness when you're protecting what matters. I looked at her. 11 years old, pale blue eyes like mine, holding the binoculars Margaret had used for 30 years. No, I said. It's not. That night, I made my final journal entry. March 22nd, 26. Pair of Stellar's Jays, oak tree, same nesting location as 1995. Ruby identified them without prompting. 47 years I'd built something, almost lost it to greed. Legacy isn't money. It's teaching an 11-year-old that patience, documentation, and principle defeat entitlement every time. Semper fidelis, always faithful. To family worth keeping.